Okay. And right. Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to think here to wrap this up. I want to get our predictions to be as concrete as possible. So to summarize, you're thinking you've got this 2030 proposition, and then further, you're believing that for composition, it will be more prevalent to use a mind-controlled system than a voice-controlled system. Actually, let me write that down. More than voice. And then further, I don't know if there was another further there. But here's the thing, because one thing that occurred to me the other day as I was thinking about this, that like I continue to believe that it will be a faster, better, more productive experience to type, and that most people will continue to type as opposed to using the mind control thing. But what I do believe is that for hands-free situations and for texting, where you're sending short bursts of text in situations where you may be otherwise engaged, driving, or even some, I don't know, other situations, I would think that's when people would really want to use this sort of situation. To be able to have, if I can have sort of a mentally controlled phone, let's say, I don't know if I've got an earpiece or whatever, but like, I can hear that a call is coming in, right, and I can answer it with my mind and not answer it with my mind, or send somebody a text with my mind. Like you do that like in the middle of a meeting or something, and like nobody would even know.
Yeah. Right.
That I think that people are really going to want to be able to do that because it's going to have the privacy, and even if it is a difficult process, just like typing with your thumbs is suboptimal,
right,
it'll be fine for sending a couple sentences, but for longer.
Because you think it'll be too difficult to focus enough to do it, like to write an essay, like to think about it, to write an essay.
Well, it's just like right now, like typing with my thumbs I'll do because it's small and it's convenient and it's okay, but I prefer not to have to do things that way. It's slower, it's suboptimal. I'd much rather use the keyboard. I guess I fundamentally believe the keyboard is going to be a better experience than the mind control experience.
The keyboard specifically, or some other tactile?
I think it's going to be the keyboard. I don't think, we've had that.
What about, does the keyboard count if it's on like a touchscreen?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. But
so like the general key, like every letter is represented and you touch every letter.
Yeah. And I think it'll probably still be QWERTY on top of that.
I think definitely there's a distinct difference between the situation in which I have a screen and I'm interacting with the screen versus I'm just dictating, whether that's through voice or mental commands. I really do think that one of the issues with just voice commands is like a lack of sense of where I am in the interaction. Yeah. And when you have the screen and you're typing and you have the mouse, you're mostly looking at the screen and you're sort of off to the side doing the control. So I guess I do see those as two different situations, but I think mental control would be more efficient if I could just replace the mouse and be typing. I mean, and actually there already been demos with the camera mouse, so replacing the mouse with just eye tracking.
Eye tracking mouse.
Yeah, which is like one step. It's not what I'm talking about, but it's kind of another step towards you don't have to go to the secondary control. The machine is sort of paying attention to what you're paying attention to. Yeah. I think that actually could be done with the same mental system, and it would be much better than having the mouse navigate, and it would continue to keep me navigating the space visually, even though it's a mental input. I'm grounded by the screen. I think you could do the same thing on like an iPad, where like you're grounded by the screen of the iPad. You're not typing anything. You're just looking at it. Your text is appearing. You're editing the text. You're editing a full essay, but you don't have to like go in there and chicken pick the text.
Yeah. Okay, so so I guess here's my key question. You really believe that mind control text entry will be more convenient, better experience than a typed experience?
Yes.
Right.
Provided it's accurate, and provided you like obviously there's issues of I don't want it to type everything I'm thinking, so I think there's a learning curve.
Yeah, you're gonna have to learn how to do it. It's hard.
Right.
It's a little hard for me to imagine how that even
it could
work.
And so it's interesting to think about. Touchscreen. If I have my thumb on it, it's listening, and if I take my thumb off, it's not listening. Like, does that count as mind control because there is a tactile input that triggers it starting?
I would count that. That's fine.
So I think something like that could sort of bridge the gap between
I'm thinking words and words are somehow getting it.
Right. I'm paying attention to actually outputting something to the system.
Do you think you'll need to think it a letter at a time, or do you think it'll be an issue of thinking words?
I think it'll be words. I don't think it'll be a letter at a time. I think initially, we have right now letter at a time, but it's kind of arbitrary. So it's like you change. It's biofeedback in some sense, right? Like you associate some sort of thought with some sort of output, and letter at a time, word at a time is kind of a matter of training what you train the system to do.
Because it's just the ability to detect whatever. I mean, first of all, where in the world in your brain is the word, and, and then the subtlety of being able to get that EEG information.
And it's weird to think, one big question is, if I train a system and you train a system, I mean, speech recognition is able to now generalize between voices.
Yes.
So, like, if you say Germany and the phone system is listening to you, it can recognize you or me or someone else. Will this kind of system be able to do that? Or will it truly be unique because the concept of Germany or a individual word is just totally unique from brain to brain and not something that you can be predictive about. Like, if someone's thinking this, they must be thinking about roses, or they must be thinking about the word Germany.
Well, right. It's one thing to think about roses. It's another thing to think the word roses.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's a very different thing.
Right.
I mean, and the way I would imagine this worked, if it can work at all, is that it would be almost a sub-vocalization thing, in that it's one thing to have thoughts drifting around in your brain, and it's another thing when you are actively imagining, you're talking to yourself in your head.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that, as far as I understand, is a very similar part of the brain to the part where you're actually talking.
Right. So there is a version of this which is you learned how to type, and when you use this system, you imagine that you're typing, and it's not reacting to you mentally thinking about roses. It's reacting to your
mentally
sort
imagining
of mental,
your
mental muscle action of like the act of typing. You don't actually type, but you go through the motions of typing, which makes sense to me.
But it'll be some trained system, something like that.
Right.
Okay, I think that's good. I think that's solid and concrete. And I think the things we really differ on, well, I'm skeptical that it'll actually be possible.
Right, sure. We'll get there. Eventually, you do think eventually it'll get there. The skepticism is 2030.
The skepticism for me is whether it requires surgery.
Okay.
And in fact, I guess I'll say that I believe that with surgery by 2030, this will be possible.
Okay.
And you're saying it's possible without surgery. I think it'll require surgery, but I do think it'll be possible by 2030. You think it'll be more convenient than typing. I think it'll be less convenient than manually using your fingers. For long composition. But that as a convenience, that it will be that some people will want to use it.
Sure.
Preferably. But weirdly, I think it'll take surgery. But I also believe that some people will be willing to do that.
Oh yeah.
That people will be willing to get the surgery in order to do it. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Do we have a crystal ball or something?
No, I don't know. It's exciting. It's the very first Crystal Ball Society video. So.
All right, number 1.
All right.